Hey Chaotic Crew, Brian here, and we've got a fun new Strixhaven deck tech to go over, this time Muddle the Ever-Changing. It's a very fun Izzet token Myriad commander. Before we dive into it, I want to let you know this episode is brought to you by Manapool. Manapool is a fast-growing marketplace for Magic the Gathering that makes buying and selling cards easy. Their optimizer helps you get the best value in buying cards, and the team is focused on making it a great experience for buyers and sellers alike. Big shout out to Manapool for helping out the channel. Check out our affiliate link in the description below for any of the singles you're seeing here. And yeah, you can probably see a couple of the teasers as far as like what we're going to put in the deck, but let's go over Muddle and who Muddle is and why it is such a fun, unique commander. So Muddle is a 4-mana 3/3 elemental otter shapeshifter that whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell becomes a copy of up to one target non-legendary creature you control, except it has Myriad. And this is only until end of turn. So the next turn, it becomes another copy, etc, etc, etc. So this being non-legendary creatures is actually very cool and great way. Otherwise, we would, you know, there's a lot of complaints about making token copies of legendary creatures, making them not legendary. But what's really cool is there are lots of great cards that you could do this with. Now, Muddle, I guess depending on your play group, just to make the most powerful deck, you are leaning more towards the toxic cards, like the cards that steal your opponent's things when they enter the battlefield, or things that constantly remove your opponent's board state. That is ideally not how we're going to build this deck, right? We want to make sure we have fun playing it, but also our opponents don't hate us for doing so. So yeah, we're mainly focused on generating more value for us. That's how I've built this deck. And the creatures will definitely show that. So first, Anti-Causal Vestige is so good here. You can warp it in for 4, and then myriading it out is really fantastic, because those myriad tokens will leave the battlefield too. And Anti-Causal Vestige, when it leaves the battlefield, you draw a card, and you can put a permanent with mana value less than or equal to the number of lands you control from your hand onto the battlefield tapped. So that's really good. This deck, having like 3 of these triggers on the stack is fantastic, because you can get a land or 2 off of the first 2 triggers and then get something even bigger off the last trigger. So really good there. Archmage Emeritus, we are casting a lot of instant and sorceries to make our commander a copy of something. So Archmage Emeritus drawing us cards here, and if we can make it a copy, maybe we can draw multiple cards in a turn if in a pinch. I don't know, not the best use of the copy on our commander's ability, but really strong with what the deck wants to do. Auton Soldier is fantastic. Speaking of non-legendary copies of legendary creatures, Auton Soldier can enter the battlefield as a copy of any creature, except it isn't legendary, is an artifact, and also has Myriad. So your commander will, typically you will want this to enter in as a copy of another creature, not necessarily your commander, and then you can make multiple copies of that by attacking, because you're sure you're getting a second instance of your commander, which is nice. You could totally do that. Having a second commander on the battlefield is great, but you will lose that Myriad when it becomes a copy of something else until end of turn, and then you'll get the Myriad back, but I mean, you're really using your commander to make the copy. So it's a little complicated, and it may seem like it's a bit of a miss, but it's a really great card in the deck regardless. Clever Impersonator can be a copy of any non-land permanent on the battlefield. And the reason I'm doing this is because it's really great to copy stuff your opponents have, the great value things there, as even creatures. And if you can make it a creature, then Muddle can potentially myriad it out and become a copy. So really great there. Cloudkin Seer is fantastic, you know, just cheap card that you want to get early down that your commander can copy, and when it does copy, it has some evasion and can draw you cards, so really strong there. Devilish Valet is pretty interesting here. This is kind of one of our finisher cards. Obviously 1/3 trample haste doesn't do a whole lot for 3 mana, but it has whenever another creature enters the battlefield under control, double Devilish Valet's power until end of turn. So the first creature that enters, it becomes a 2/3, then a 4/3, then an 8/3, then a 16/3, and a 32/3, and so on and so forth. So really, if you can get 5 creatures entering the battlefield in one turn, which token decks typically do, and this is a little different than a token deck, then you can probably murder somebody, because that's 32 power on a trampler, right? And if you can get Myriad. If you can Myriad some stuff out, or Myriad themselves out, right, then this can kind of just end the game, if you have the right circumstances, right? We'll get to that in a second, but there's ways to do that. Dower Port Mage is really great. Whenever one or more other creatures you control leave the battlefield without dying, draw a card, and then you can tap, pay 2 mana, return another target creature we control to its owner's hand. So it's kind of semi-protection there. And what's great is the Myriad tokens exile themselves at the end of combat. So if they're not just killed on block by your opponents, then you'll draw cards for that. So really, or 1 card for that, so not bad. Goldlush Triad is really great. It's already has Myriad. It's a 4/3 flyer for 5. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, you make a treasure. Now, if you can give this double Myriad, make your commander a copy, give it double Myriad, you're going to be ramping pretty heavily. So really, really strong there. Havoc Eater is fantastic too. When it enters, you're going to go to up to 1 target creature that opponent controls, and Havoc Eater gets X +1/+1 counters, or X is the total power of creatures goaded this way. So it's 1 creature that each opponent controls. So, holy cow, like, Myriading this out, you're essentially making all your opponents unable to block your creatures, and you're forcing them to attack your opponents next turn. So this is a really, really strong card to have in the deck. Hideous Taskmaster similarly is going to disrupt your opponent's board state, right, by taking control of creatures until end of turn. Maybe you can make your commander a copy of one of those creatures and have them gain Myriad 2. They also gain Trample, Haste, Annihilator 1, which Annihilator 1, I hate that it is doing that, but it's still really strong. And yeah, at least they're not going to lose the creatures you're stealing, because they'll get them back at the end of the turn. So really good there. Ornithopter Paradise is really great ramp. Patron of the Arts also going to ramp, and not a bad early target to get Myriaded by your commander. Pinnacle Monk is fantastic to get cards, instants, and sorceries out from our graveyard to our hand, which of course we need to fuel this engine, and also doubles as a land on the back. Plundering Barbarian, good removal or semi-ramp. Perpetual Phrasebreaker, also going to give us that semi-ramp and kind of, impulse draw on a whim. Rapid Augmenter, 3 mana, 1/3 with haste. Whenever another creature you control with base power 1 enters, it gains haste until end of turn. That, we don't really care about that. But it has whenever another creature you control enters, if it wasn't cast, put a +1/+1 counter on Rapid Augmenter, and Rapid Augmenter can't be blocked this turn. So really great to have in a deck where you are getting a lot of these Myriad tokens out. Also, what is fantastic is that you can Myriad this, and if this gets Myriaded, or if your commander comes with a copy of this, it'll keep the +1/+1 counters, and also won't be able to be blocked, so then you will be able to start dealing lots of commander damage very quickly to your opponents. So really good there. Redoubled Storm Singer is pretty fantastic too. When it attacks, for each creature token you control that entered this turn, create a tapped and attacking token that's a copy of that token. So it essentially doubles those tokens and then sacrifices them at the beginning of the next end step. So it doubles the Myriad triggers, essentially, is what we're getting at here. Scourge of Valkis is great. We don't have a ton of dragons. There's a good handful, right? We talked about Goldlush Triad, Patron of the Arts, and Scourge of Valkis itself, and then we have Terror of the Peaks that you can see down here. Your opponents may also have dragons, but what's great about Scourge of Valkis is that when it or another dragon enters the battlefield under your control, deals X damage to any target where X is the number of dragons you control. You can also give it power, but giving this Myriad or making your commander a token copy of this is also fantastic, because the more of these abilities you have on the stack, if you have one on the battlefield, you make your commander a copy, and then you Myriad 2 more out. And those 2 are going to enter, and they're going to deal 4 damage each to whatever you want. So that's 8 damage total, just that turn. Fantastic. And then if you get another dragon on the battlefield, then that's also great. Stunt Double is a flash shapeshifter card. Can be the copy of any creature. So great to flash this out, and then the next turn be able to cast your commander or do whatever, and be able to make something a token copy and Myriad it out. So not bad at all. Terror of the Peaks, also kind of a game ender with Scourge of Valkis, works really well to deal a lot of damage to your opponents. Now it can deal damage to any target, so this could be creature removal, planeswalker removal, any and everything works. And then in any deck that cares about entering the battlefield, Drumming Carnosaur is just so good here. It's really just too good to not have in the deck. All right, Sorceries, Corporeal Projection. Target creature you control gains Myriad until end of turn, and you can overload it to give all your creatures Myriad, so it works exactly with what this deck wants to do. Mizzix is Mastery, just going to get all your instants and sorceries out of the graveyard, cast them again, and get you a lot of those triggers. Distortion Strike is going to make a creature unblockable. Also has Rebound, so it'll cast it automatically on your following turn. Enter the Enigma makes a creature unblockable, draws you a card. Expressive Iteration is great way to filter out the top 3 cards of your deck. Full Throttle gives you 2 additional combat phases, so really, really great there. Then we also have Pearl of Wisdom. Our commander is an Otter. This spell costs 1 less to cast if you control an Otter, and then you draw 2 cards, so really neat there. We do have Irenicus's Vile Duplication. 4 mana, create a token that's a copy of target creature you control, except the token is flying and isn't legendary if that creature is legendary. So it makes a flying copy of our commander, essentially. And we're going to have our commander become copy of, or 2 copies of 1 creature, or 1 copy of 2 creatures. And they're going to myriad those out, and shenanigans will ensue. Having these non-legendary copies of our commander is going to be insanely good, especially because casting these will trigger the first commander's ability, right? To be able to copy something. Oh, yeah, so we could actually just use this and copy something else. So typically you would probably want to cast this, don't copy anything with your commander, and then have one of these other cheap 1 mana spells or 2 mana spells, whatever. Then you make both of your commanders copies of something else. So that's what I would do there. Mob Rule wins games. I will say it anytime. It's similar to the Hideous Taskmaster. We're not running Insurrection just because it seems a little less fun to just have that. But that you could also put that in here too. Quantum Misalignment, like Irenicus's Vile Duplication, is going to make a copy of our commander. Also has Rebound, which is really, really freaking good. Preordain's fantastic. Relentless Assault gives us an extra combat. Strike It Rich is a cheap way to trigger our commander, but we also have Flashback. Sees the Spotlight, takes opponent's creatures, or lets you draw cards. Slip Through Space is another way to make creatures unblockable. And then Will the Teamer is fantastic in this deck. We're going to make a token that's a copy of target permanent, except it's a 4/4 dragon creature with flying in addition to its other types. And then target player draws cards equal to the greatest mana value among permanents you control. So we'll probably be drawing a good amount of cards there and making a token copy of one of our creatures, or one of our opponent's creatures, or one of our opponent's permanents. It's really really strong there. Aetherize is great protection on us, so people can't crack back. Arcane Denial is fantastic. We're also running Negate and Sink into Stupor is like a semi-counter spell. Not running a ton of counter spells because doing stuff on your opponent's turn isn't exactly ideal. Chaos Warp is fantastic removal. We do also have Pongify, Rapid Hybridization as a way to be strong removal. Snap as well, untaps 2 lands, so we can cast some more spells there too. But really, these instants are to be cheap ways to trigger our commander, right? We have Defy Gravity, giving a creature flying. Also has Flashback, so it can come back from our graveyard. Consider, Opt. Those are great cards to be able to, just quickly activate our commander. Frantic Search, loots us a little times. Crimson Wisps and Expedite's great because it actually gives our commander haste, which is something it doesn't have. So later in the game, we want to hold this up, right? One of these up and be able to recast our commander, play this, give it haste, and have it copy something else. And yeah, really, really good there. So love that. And then Untimely Malfunction as some like semi-protection. Prismari Command and Reality Shift are the other 2 I didn't really mention. But moving on to artifacts, 10 of those. Arcane Signet, Fire Diamond, we have Mind Stone, Sky Diamond, Talisman of Creativity, Izzet Signet, Cursed Mirror. Those are going to be our ramp pieces there in the deck. You don't need a ton, but being able to get one of these is definitely very helpful. Blade of Cells is also fantastic to give any creature Myriad, and having it in your commander is ideal because it gives it double Myriad when it becomes a copy of something. Idol of Oblivion is going to draw us cards. Swiftfoot Boots is just fantastic. Cursed Mirror also has the upside of being able to be a copy of a creature in the battlefield too, so we love that. And then lastly, for the enchantments, we do have Aqueous Form to make our commander unblockable, right? We want to keep it on the battlefield and want to make sure it can hit in, so this is really strong there. We have 35 lands, including MDFC. Nothing too crazy, but we are playing Arena of Glory, Helmar Battlements to help get us haste. Ghost Quarter for some land destruction, and then the rest are just, to get your colors, right? So let's do a quick little play test. And I will go down a bit here. And we do have 1 land, so that's not going to work. So let's try again. Okay, this is 2 lands with some ramp, so we will take this. So turn 1, Irenicus's Vile Duplication's a great card to have. We'll play the Mountain. I don't want to play Preordain. We could do it, but I want to make sure we have fodder for our commander. So I'm not really pressing on that right now. We're going to play the Training Center and then the Arcane Signet. We could also play the Swiftfoot Boots if we wanted, but I think having more mana right now is better. We did not draw the 3rd land, but we do have Expressive Iteration for this turn 3, so we play that. We're going to look at the top 3 cards. Yeah, we'll exile this. We can play it this turn. We'll bring Reality Shift to our hand. Blade of Cells is a great card, but also requires a lot of mana, so we'll put that in the bottom of our library. All right, and then we'll play the Island this turn, and now we have 2 mana again. We could hold it up for our Arcane Denial, or we could play the Swiftfoot Boots. I think Swiftfoot Boots is potentially better, but we also don't really have a creature that we want Muddle to copy right now. So I don't really think we need to have the boots out at this point, but we could hold open our answers for Reality Shift. Although preordaining right now isn't also bad because we want to draw something that we can actually use. So I say we probably just preordain. We drew the Distortion Strike, so we don't really need any of this. So I'm gonna actually scribe both of these to the. I'm gonna keep the. I guess I'll keep the island on top. And we'll draw that for the card, right? The Preordain, and then we'll go to our next turn. Okay, we do get the Arena of Glory, which is nice. So theoretically, we could play this, play the Arena of Glory, play this, give it haste, but there's nothing to copy. So we're kind of struggling here. Now we can seize the Spotlight potentially, which is really nice on our next turn. So we're gonna play this now, Muddle the Ever-Changing. And we're just going to hold open 1 mana, even though we can't really do anything with that. So next turn, Ornithopter Paradise, again, not something we really want to copy. So this is relying a lot on Seize the Spotlight, but yeah, your opponents aren't going to want to give you a card that you could copy with Muddle. So that's kind of saving us right there, but not the best hand. Let's try again. We'll keep this 2-lander. 2-lander's not the most ideal, but can work in a pinch. Okay, we do get a 2nd land. Let's actually go ahead and play that tapped. Nope, wrong one. And then go to our next turn. Oop. Okay, we do have lands now. So 3 lands doesn't really get us a whole lot. Again, we are kind of waiting for something that we want to copy ourselves. Now, Stunt Double is great to have in the hand. We could definitely play Muddle and then get a copy and go somewhere. But turn 4, we're going to draw another land, so not bad. We're getting good on lands. We'll cast our commander. Now we have to wait a whole turn cycle, which isn't bad either. Now we play the Stunt Double, which is going to be a copy of any creature in the battlefield. It'll probably be one of our opponent's really good value creatures. Then we give our commander flying, and we swing. So not bad, not great. We could also snap at some point, but we'd have to do that before either of these two. Not ideal. Last game, okay, we'll keep this hand. We got some good ramp. We got Anti-Causal Vestige, which is the card we definitely want to be copying here. We'll play this Arena of Glory tapped. Next turn, play an island and the Arcane Signet. And then turn after that, play the Commander. Alright, and people could remove this. If they do, really no worries. I'm not worried about it one bit because we play the Command Tower, we play the Anti-Causal Vestige for the warp cost. That costs 4 mana. And then we attack Command Tower for Consider. On cast, Muddle becomes a copy. We will Surveil 1, keep that on top, and draw a card. And then Anti-Causal Vestige, or Muddle's going to attack as Anti-Causal Vestige, and we're going to get 2 Myriad tokens. And then you have the 2 Anti-Causal Vestige Myriad token triggers as they leave the battlefield. So you will draw a card, and we'll put a land on the battlefield. And then we will draw a card, and we will put a land on the battlefield. So now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lands on the battlefield, so we're a little further away from Havoc Eater. Then at the end of the turn, this warps back and leaves the battlefield, so we will draw a card and put a land on the battlefield. So yeah, it's definitely, we drew lots of lands this game, which can happen, but we've now gotten past that. So we're in the turn 5. We had the mana for Arcane Denial, so let's say someone tried to kill our commander or board wipe or whatever. Board wipe we may have not stopped depending on the board state, but let's just say Arcane Denial happened, we drew a card. And so we've got some great options. We've got Trumpeting Carnosaur, which is fantastic. We've got Havoc Eater, which is fantastic. I mean, depending on what we want to do, right, we might want to set up with Trumpeting Carnosaur and then use Havoc Eater to deal damage. It really just depends on what you're going for there. But yeah, that's kind of the deck. Really powerful this last game, but the first 2 games were a bit of a miss, so just be careful there. This deck does require a little bit of setup and needing some of your creatures that you want to copy. So make sure to let me know down below what you would take out, what you would put in. I'm really excited to build this deck, and I'm going to keep building more, so make sure to like the channel. So make sure to subscribe to the channel if you enjoy the content. And yeah, check out those pre-con upgrades we did recently, and you might be able to win yourself one too. So check those out to learn more. But otherwise, take care, have a good week, and I'll see you next time. Bye.